We're going to open the governing board action. We'll be opening with the closed session, so I'd like to first open the meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency. And this is going to be a closed session of the governing board.
Chair Tucker, what I'm noticing is we are missing Rose Herrera from San Jose, and in order to take any action, we need one vote from each of the partners who are members of the governing board. So we don't have a quorum right now, and we don't have the ability to take any action. So
Is the closed session an FYI or is it an action?
it's an action item.
Okay. So we will possibly push that down until later on the agenda.
You're still going to have the problem though with any other actions that the governing board is being asked to take.
And all of the actions that are required are, we are already adopting resolutions. So would you like to call the order on the, look at anything that's not recalled? Okay, then yes, stop, call to order, and the roll call, please.
Board members La Munoz,
Present.
Tucker,
Here.
Siebert,
Here.
Crabtree,
Here.
Tate, Herrera, Camus, Pravetti, Courtney,
Here.
Wasserman,
Here.
Simidian,
Here.
Schmidt,
Here.
Lazat, Fitzwater.
Here.
We have a quorum of the implementation board.
Way to go, implementation board. That's what I got to say. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying.
You know, a little positive reinforcement from the governing board members who are here. Sure. Might be a nice thing.
We should get jerseys. This is not big.
I would suggest
Implementation board jerseys, ID.
This one is set.
implementation board actions for only the implementation board start with agenda item 7. And I think that may be the appropriate place to move to, and then we can loop back when we have a governing board form.
All right,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do we know that one of the two San Jose members is anticipated?
Yes.
All right, Ken, on that.
We'll blame it on traffic.
Ms. Herrera.
It's all good. Wait.
Set traffic from where we came from. All right, so Ken, you said 7?
Yes, which is the approval of minutes of the November 21st regular meeting, and then that would be followed by the ICF contract and public advisory.
Which is 8. Okay, so let's start 7, implementation board. We're off and running. And anyone, I don't have any cards, anything from the public, anything that I know about. If anyone from the public wishes to speak, Mayor Tate. Glad to have you. Does that give you a point? No. All right.
Here.
All right. Oh, San Jose, that's right. All right. Number 7 is agenda item is for approval of the minutes. Any comments? Any motions? Thank you. Approval made and seconded. Any discussion? Any questions? Comments? None.
May I trouble you guys to speak up just a smidge?
You bet. So we have a motion, we have a second, we have no discussion. We're taking the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman.
No, I can hear that.
Siebert and Tucker, you had motion maker.
Thank you.
Okay, 7 is.
Chair, I'd like
Yes.
to abstain. I wasn't present. Same for me as well, I'll abstain.
Okay. We then move on to item number 8, implementation board. Authorizing the executive officer to negotiate and execute an amendment to the consultant agreement between the Habitat Agency and ICF Jones Stokes. Ken, take it away.
Thank you. A couple of corrections. Let me dispose of those first. On the first page of the staff report, in the recommended action, the correct number is 667,362, not the 666,593. And then and that's important in terms of the motion. And then under the discussion, under the second last line of the first paragraph, the line that starts with engineers regional general permit, the correct number is 33279, not 32279.
So the 33279 in the paragraph down below is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you to Roland for catching that. My commendations on detailed staff.
And he works in the chair of in the office of the chair of the implementation board.
Yes.
Just saying that. Not comparing chair implementation and governing board, it's just,
Yeah, right.
okay.
Little bit of background. ICF was originally known to us as Jones and Stokes, and then over the course of the years, they were acquired by a company called ICF based in Washington. So it's either ICF or ICF Jones and Stokes, but however we refer to them, that is the same entity. The current ICF agreement for working on the habitat plan has been with the Santa Clara Valley Water District. That agreement was transferred to the Habitat Agency in December, effective December 1st, 2013. That agreement needs to be amended to establish a January 1 to December 31, 2014 term and scope. So we are, the current contract expired actually on December 31st, and this is the first opportunity to extend it. The transferred agreement from the Water District has two elements that I just wanted to note because there are a lot of different numbers here. One element, and the total is in the staff report. But the two elements are $83,083.05 of habitat-funded work that is part of the contract that expired December 31st. But it's essentially called Phase 9. And that work will continue on under the extended agreement and is part of the total budget authorization on this, although it has already been part of the approved purchase contract. The second part of that is $33,279.17, which is from pre-Habitat Agency funding. And I just want to make sure that the record and the understanding is clear. When the liaison group authorized the framework and the moving into preparing the final plan, part of that process was also to authorize work on the regional, with the Corps of Engineers on the regional general permit. The funding for that work came out of local partner funds. And those were pre-Habitat Agency funding. A decision was made that rather than trying to reimburse those funds back to the 6 partners, that they would be carried forward and used for the first part of the implementation and the water's permitting work. The first part of that implementation work was subsequently finished up. The water's permitting work continues on. So those funds is essentially a funding source that will show up in the budget. And that I didn't want that to be too buried in the history. The new work for $551,000, there's a detailed scope of services and a budget that is part of the staff report. I think suffice it to say that ICF's both past experience with our plan, the work they are doing for East Contra Costa, on implementation of the East Contra Costa plan all come together to address the funding needs, the scope of the work needs over this next 12 months. And that all the details have been worked out in considerable detail, in considerable discussion. So the staff recommendation is to authorize the executive officer to negotiate and execute the agreement. The scope of work is attached, the budget is attached, that's all been negotiated, and it's down to a few parts of the agreement that Vera is working on that before I can sign it. Otherwise, we would have had an agreement in front of you today. We were close, not quite.
Thank you, Ken, for that report. And Roland, Ken gave you credit for those typos. All right.
Fixing.
The Honorable Linda Lazat.
Hello.
All righty, so that's our staff report. Any questions of staff? Implementation board members? Yes. Member
And
Seaver.
I assume that if in hiring an executive director and the executive director possibly looking at some staff, if we find that there are, that staff can perform some elements of this work, that the work plan can be amended during its course, in order to reduce the scope of ICF's work?
It could, yes. The approach of the agency has been to try to use contract resources rather than to hire staff. So at this point in time, there would be no staff to substitute in for ICF. ICF is, in effect, and part of this, is substituting for staff. There will be a ICF staff person who will be in the office, the Habitat Agency office, 1 or 2 days a week. We'll set up a workstation for her, rather than hiring a staff person directly.
I understand that. And that, which leads to my second question, which is, was there any effort to go to other agencies like the Open Space Authority for some of these functions? I know the firm outstanding in terms of biologists, et cetera, but things like rangeland management, easement management, did we ask the local Open Space Authority whether they would be able to provide any of those services?
I had a meeting with both County Parks and Recreation and the Open Space Authority regarding interest in different parts of the work. I anticipate that Rob Courtney and I need to sort out details on work that the county is very likely, I think, to undertake. I'm a little ahead of in terms of not having read on the details with Rob. But the point of ICF, and we talked about this at management team, is that right now they are so embedded in the plan development and have so much experience that we couldn't conceive of a equal and more cost-effective alternative. In 2 or 3 years, I think the agency probably will want to go out and search for other providers, and ICF knows that. And I think East Contra Costa has been going through that process of starting to get out and look beyond the first couple of years of implementation. But at this point in time, the most economical way to approach this work is to use ICF. Their rates are quite competitive. We have locked in some of the compensation rates back in pre-2007 numbers because of the recession. So we think we have a very economical and efficient operation with ICF right now.
Thank you, Judd.
Mr. Chair.
Someone else? Yes.
Just looking through the work plan, I'm thinking of the big pictures that the habitat plan is a deal. Some folks get permits and the environment gets mitigation. So when can we start seeing some concrete mitigation that we can show the public?
I noted this in a conversation with someone before the meeting. The challenge has been in starting up the agency, the vast array of things that we've had to do in terms of policies and procedures and critical decisions like selecting the logo or filing with the state, and conflict of interest groups. So you get quite a range of things that you've had to deal with. And
You can leave the logo off next
time. The point is we are working our way steadily through that startup amount of work. The work plan for 2013-14, current year, anticipates in budget, and it's what I certainly anticipate, is that the second half of that year, in other words, the next 5 to 6 months, we'll see a shift of attention to actual work on conservation issues. In terms of showing mitigation on the ground, we're still some ways away from that in terms of funding and grants, being able to access grants, et cetera. But where certainly I want to end up with, by the end of this budget year, is some clear roadmaps for conservation issues in terms of moving ahead on issues like burrowing owls and serpentine issues and habitat connectivity. Some of the critical issues that the public has raised in the past, I've committed to any number of people that they will be part of discussions at the staff and consultant level. And that's built into the ICF contract also.
And do we see them then in the next fiscal year, we will be able to, by the end of that fiscal year, point to stuff on the ground and say, look, this is an achievement? I'm not
going to promise that. We intend to bring the next year's budget to you in March. And I think it's been fair to say that back in May of last year, when we started up, we were operating with far more unknowns than knowns. We are still have a notable number of unknowns, but they're decreasing. But I can't tell you right now with any assurance that we'll actually see things in the ground. The intent is to do that. The intent is certainly for waters issues, especially restoration and creation, to have a project or projects in the 2014-15 year. We just need to get there, and that's, of course, getting all the way through construction, planning, and contracts and everything else.
I'd just say, I would see even the incorporation of existing public lands into a reserve system as the start of that.
Right,
As-
and that's
as
one of
an-
those
As an
crit-
achievement.
And
As an
that's one of those
achievement.
critical issues that we want to work with both county parks and with the Open Space Authority. That is part of the work plan, to set out an approach on how we start moving those lands into the reserve.
And to Board Member Schmidt's comment about public lands, part of this HCA coming together was an agreement that the county would put in X number of acres, especially the county, there's water district, there's things like that. But I agree entirely with what you said. That needs to become official. That was a promise made as far as starting off the mitigation, if you will, starting off the inventory of open space land that was to be protected. And part of that, the only way, Ken, that we could reach that number when we developed the whole plan
Right.
and anticipated the dollars coming in and the acreage and everything else was from that initial contributions from the county as part of that. So I think when that becomes official, that's newsworthy. That's, we've done something. Because of the creation of the HCA, X thousands of acres have been permanently placed into the HCA as mitigation, dedicated open space, da-da-da-da-da. So I want to echo those thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? None. I'd look for a motion then to authorize the executive officer to negotiate said amendment.
Make a motion?
Thank you. Motion made.
Second?
Thank you very much. Any further
Also, we
discussion?
note with the corrected number.
With the two corrected numbers.
Yeah, and the action is only one, it's taking the 666,593 and turning it into
Because
667,360.
593 goes to 362, and in paragraph number 2, the 32,000 changes 33,000. All right, so we have a motion with Fitzwater, a second by Schmidt. You hearing okay over there?
Yeah.
Got it? Any further discussion? Oh, and just for the record, another member of the implementation board came in. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That passes unanimously. 6, that was 7, that was 8. We are now on to 9.
Item 9, which is the appointment to the Public Advisory Committee.
Okay. Ken, do you want to give a little brief on this, about the fact of who met together and what was decided?
Very briefly, the implementation board appointed board members Wasserman and Schmidt to a committee that my name got attached to, and I found myself a third member of the committee. And we met, we did an outreach process that went out last November, and then it was repeated on December 2nd. We received a number of applications. As the staff report indicates, we did not receive enough debate to fill all of the Public Advisory Committee. We received applications for the environmental position and one for the farming ranching position and the general public positions, but we did not receive any applications for the economic business interest. The three of us met, reviewed the applications, the recommendation is in front of you. The policy for the Public Advisory Committee that the board adopted establishes 4- and 2-year terms, and we used the great scientific method of alphabetical order to determine who gets 4 and who gets 2.
Thank you very much. And Vera, as far as the recommended action goes, it's just looking for a motion to accept the recommendations on page 2 or propose some other recommendation.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on this item? Any motion? The committee that Ken just referred to made the recommendations on the second paragraph of page 2. And unless anyone just... Thank you. Member Lazat, we've got a motion to
Second.
move and a second. Thank you very much. Mr. Fitzwater? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And Laurel Privetti, welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we have another member of the implementation. I'm not rubbing it in, it's just a fact. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Lazat.
I just had a question about how, what's the next step for getting the business community? And
Outreach.
what business community are you looking at? Are you looking for the chamber chair or or business?
I would certainly like to see someone from one of the chambers. That would be certainly a good source. I do need to contact Sam Giles at the Building Industry Association. It would be good to have a home builder involved in this. And we will continue to reaching out, nudging along, trying to get some applicants. The committee will remain in force, so when we get something, the committee can bring back a recommendation.
Thank you.
And if I may, I might add, depending on what that response is and how effective it is, you can always consider directing some change in the manner in which that committee is constituted. If you recall, there was a recommendation to have 9 members that come from certain groups. That can always change to reduce the number of members, shift the people on the certain groups, if you need to. So that's always a consideration the second time around.
Are you good on that?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Wonderful. We move on to item number 10. And Ken, this is the report on replacing you.
Yes. I'll try to suppress my eagerness.
Yes, implementation.
Other than I always use interim executive officer for my position. Really, a couple introductory comments, and I'm going to turn it over to Pam and Ed from CPS HR. The critical actions today, I think, are twofold. One is giving direction from the implementation board. I might add, the implementation board has the full authority for the executive officer position to hire, fire, whatever. This is a duty that was delegated in the JPA agreement to the implementation. So this is your item, your responsibility. The first part of this is identifying a selection committee. And the second part is setting a special implementation board meeting for late January or early February. We talked about whether that would be an implementation board meeting or a selection committee meeting. My recommendation is that it should be an implementation board meeting. That implementation board members should have a sort of full opportunities, both in terms of one-on-one interviews as well as a group discussion, to address the issues that CPS HR feels are very important to address in the next weeks. So with that, introduce Pam Derby and Ed Tweez from CPS HR, and there is a PowerPoint that they will use that will help you really work through the discussion.
Well, good afternoon. As you know, we spoke with you before the holidays at one of your last meetings to talk about the recruitment. What I want to talk to you very briefly about today is the methodology that we'll be using, our process. Some of you have actually been a part of it, have been clients in the past. I want to go through that quickly, and then we do want to talk about whether you're going to appoint a selection committee, what our next steps are going to be, so we can get rolling with this quickly. So obviously the things that we need to talk about first in phase 1 is the most important thing is coming up with the ideal candidate profile. And what we envision is that over the next couple of weeks that we would be talking to people individually. I would assume every member of the implementation board, if they would like to speak with us, the members of the governing board, whether you would like us to speak to the public advisory group, some of those members. I know that Ken was going to come up with some outside stakeholders that he would like us to speak with as well. There may be other individuals that when we're doing our one-on-one conversations with you, that there are other people that you'd like us to speak with to talk to about what are the characteristics you're looking for in the next executive officer. What do you think some of the challenges and priorities are going to be? What are you hoping to see them attain, accomplish over maybe the first year, 18 months? What are the hot button issues for you? Are there individuals that you specifically want us to reach out to? Are there people that you know? So that's what we need to do in those first conversations with you. We would then come together, as Ken said, hopefully in a meeting the end of the month, the first part of February, with either the selection committee or the full implementation board to provide you with all of that feedback, and then specifically determine, yes, this is the person that we're looking for, so we can put together our marketing materials. We would then talk about, in that meeting, we would specifically design the rest of the strategy. What are our dates going to be? What is the selection committee going to be in charge of? I think that those are items that we'd like to talk about today as well. And so we would then put together all of our marketing materials. I know you've all seen the recruitment brochures that we do. We'd be sending those out to people, doing advertisements. After that process, it'd be a 30-day process, and I have a schedule at the end of this that we can talk about quickly. We would be vetting the resumes against the minimum qualifications that we've come up with you and that we've advertised for. We do a very extensive screening interview process with those individuals. Then we would meet with, I assume, the selection committee to talk about our report, talk about the individuals we've interviewed so that they can come up with a short list that they would then do a panel interview with. And then hopefully our vision would be that they would come up with the top 2 or 3 candidates that we would do reference and background checks on, and then those individuals would be interviewed by the full implementation board. So then you would have all of the information on those top 2 or 3 candidates. Sometimes a board will decide that they'd like to then do a follow-up, possibly with 1 or 2 individuals, something a little bit longer than maybe the standard hour that we do. Something a little more informal, an hour and a half, hour and 15, where maybe you only ask 6 structured questions and have a lot of question and answer when you're really trying to hone in on that final candidate. And so then our goals today are to talk about the selection committee. Normally a selection committee in a group like this is you do have your governing board and you have your implementation board. The implementation board does have the full weight of making this decision. You may just decide to have a smaller group, anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 members of the implementation board be the selection committee, or possibly there are members of the governing board that would also like to sit on that selection committee that are not part of the implementation board. So that's a decision that we need to talk about today in May. We want to talk about the stakeholder input process, as I said, and determine that date for the next selection committee or full implementation board meeting. The date that we've talked about is January 31st. I know that you all have very busy schedules, and it may be that we need to fold that into the first part of February. But those are the things that we'd like to accomplish today so that we can leave here today and start the ball rolling and start those interviews with people. So.
Thank you, Pam. Madam Governing Board, and Member Schmidt, please correct me if you don't think I'm speaking correctly, but it was on this committee, the suggestion was members from Implementation Board, Governing Board, which I certainly agree with. And in our meetings, I believe that Member Herrera expressed an interest in being part. Is that how you recall?
That's correct.
As being part. I know she's not here. It's always fun to nominate people who aren't for things.
She is on the way. We confirmed she is on the way.
Well, we'll congratulate her on the appointment when she gets there. But I just wanted to know, I'm happy to serve on that. Member Schmidt said he's happy to serve on that. I invite anybody and everybody else to do that too. Linda, did you say yes? Okay, so we've got Lazat on there as well. Is there anybody else that wishes to be on there? And we'll ask one of you on there too. Thank you. And with Rose, who specifically asked to be part of the process, that's why I'm assuming she's going to say yes, she does want to be on there. That would give us 5. Is there anybody else that wishes to be on? Otherwise,
5 is perfect.
I think
5 is it's a good number.
So we'll do that on there.
Chair Wasserman?
Yes.
Can you confirm for me the names I have yourself, Lazat, Herrera?
Crabtree and Schmidt.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Crabtree. What? Did I miss? Correct? Okay, Andrew, right there. Okay, we've got that. Thank you. And Pam, what you're looking, well, I think you just got 5 names.
Exactly, I've got the
So
5
you
names.
got that part that you wanted.
Right.
You were then looking for a date in which to meet, and you were looking at January 31st?
I was looking at January 31st for those 5
Okay.
individuals. Or the,
Where, through the chair,
Yes.
where and what time?
well, and the other thing to decide is, as Ken suggested, that the full implementation board be at that meeting. Are there members of the implementation board that feel like they would like to hear all of that feedback? Or is it going to just be the selection committee? Normally, we would just go with the selection committee at
Okay,
this
and I
point.
think on the
but-
selection, your implementation, I'm implementation, for the
And
5 more
implementation,
implementation, so I think we're
right.
pretty good on that.
Okay.
If I may suggest, Andrew Morgan Hill, the other 4 members are all in San Jose. So I would volunteer, Roland? I would volunteer us finding a room that could hold 7 people at the county building on January 31st. How does 1 o'clock work for people? Yes?
As a
Member Lazar.
compromise,
Yes.
for Andrew's sake,
Well,
for Andrew's sake, we could find a halfway point between the county and the Morgan Hill would be the water district.
Okay, would that be inconvenient for you at all?
Yeah. I don't work at the water district,
Oh, okay.
so I would have to get there. But I mean, that way, Andrew doesn't have to go all the way from Morgan Hill to
And-
the county building.
And would it be good for Andrew to make, say, 1 o'clock at the water district? I'm just messing with you.
Yes,
Go 49ers!
Actually, Andrew and I, kibitzed about this about 10
Okay.
minutes ago, and he said, look, if they try to push for the county, then to do something.
All right, good. So how's,
Thank you for standing up.
in general, how's 1 o'clock at the water district?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Would it
sir.
be possible to do a little bit later, say at 2 o'clock?
Yes, I can do 2. I can do 2. Any, Rose, you have any problem? No? Okay.
Going once?
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would suggest we get some clarification from Vera, if possible, regarding what type of notice would need to be provided for that meeting. Since it's not a board meeting, it's a committee meeting.
I understand that. So counting, do we have a quorum, Michelle, of implementation board members?
No.
You don't, so you do not need to notice that meeting publicly. You could as a courtesy, but if you don't have a quorum and ultimate decisions are going, this is direction, ultimate decisions are going to be by the entire board now.
It is important to know, however, that Ms. Herrera is the alternate for Johnny Canis on the implementation board. So there are 5 implementation board members, but that still does not constitute a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and it has Herrera here on the side as governing board.
She has a seat on governing. She also feels she's also Johnny Canis's alternate
Oh,
for
as an alternate.
implementation.
Okay,
I did put out 2 tent cards for her.
okay. Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just put it on there, February 1st. And Brian, you said 2 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
And Michelle, for clarification also, so we have Rose, we have Mr. Wasserman, Ms. Herrera, Wasserman,
Schmidt,
and Tucker.
Crabtree.
Okay, and so we don't have a quorum of the governing board either. It's 4 members, 1 from each agency constitutes a quorum. So we're missing 1, so
Yes.
we're good.
We have
Okay.
2 from 1 agency, water district.
No, that's okay.
But we don't-
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
And-
I wanted to clarify you had a quorum for neither board.
Correct.
Okay, and let's allocate 2 to 4
Yes.
and be done by then.
And then we'll be done by 4,
Be done by
absolutely.
4.
And-
Yeah.
and then the
And
date-
we will send you, obviously, we will send you information ahead of time as well, so that.
And whoever just asked on the date, it's January 31st, 2 to 4 p.m. at the water district. Okay. And that handles 1 and 2. Where's Vera?
Right.
Vera, do we need, it says recommended action, do we need a vote to say aye to what we just decided? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None.
Thank you.
Done.
Got me out of that one.
Government in motion. All right.
That doesn't help us, you should have stalled.
That's 10.
Because we don't have.
Do we have anything else that's implementation board only?
So just for,
Okay, see you in March.
just
What?
to confirm, Chair Wasserman, we'll be doing our individual calls over the next couple of weeks. Implementation board, governing board, are there public advisory people that you'd like us, you'll provide us with a list? And certainly when you're, Mr. Tweez will be doing most of those calls. When you're speaking with him, if there's other individuals that you'd like us to speak with, just give him those names and numbers and we'll contact them. But all of that information will be compiled with you and we will see you on the 31st.
Thank you. And I've got a question for you,
Oh,
Vera, after the chair of the governing board.
I have a question for you, Pam.
Yes.
So on the timeline overall,
Mhm.
what's your experience in that? Because Mr. Schreiber has let us know he has a hard stop in June.
Right, so this is our suggested schedule, is that, and I said 3:31, that's a typo on my part, pardon me. We'll be doing our individual stakeholders discussions prior to the 31st. We will have that first selection committee meeting. At that time, we will be coming up with the ideal candidate profile. We'll then be deciding on all the marketing materials, etc. The final filing date I'm proposing is March 16th. Then 2 weeks later, sometime the week of March 31st, we would meet with the selection committee to select finalists. They would get their client report a couple of days ahead of that meeting so that they can go over them.
And Pam, if I can interrupt just for a
Yes.
minute. Vera, while Pam is going through the schedule here, could you please look at agenda items 1 through 6
That's
and
exactly
see if
what I'm
there's
doing.
any action the implementation
Yeah.
board can take?
That's exactly what I'm
Okay,
doing.
and if you can just do that, and Pam, please continue.
Sure, certainly.
Yeah, the one item.
So then the selection committee would do their short list of interviews the week of April 14th, and then come up with those top 2 or 3 finalists that we would then proceed to the reference and background checks on, and then the full implementation board would do, and whether that's in conjunction with the governing board as well, the week of April 28th, and be able to announce your appointment the week of May 5th.
Thank you. Any questions?
And bring him on board, because didn't you say you wanted him for about a month or so to overlap? When is your last day?
My last day is the end of June, June
How many
30th,
people?
I guess, whatever that Friday is. I think the intent, and it's been said by a number of board members, is to have some overlap. What I asked Pam to do is to essentially do a reverse schedule, assuming the person starts on June 9th, to give me comfort that this whole process can work within the time frame. She did that. You've seen the results up there. My sense is that there probably will be a little slippage along the way. So early May, I think, will work well to get somebody on board, and by late May, early June, to allow this transition to occur.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Vera, what did you find?
Well, let's go through the items for joint governing and implementation board action, starting with item 4. Item 4, the implementation action, there is none, so you don't need to do anything on that one. Item number 5, implementation board, there's selection of a chair and vice chair for 2014.
I'm sorry, you're on, but you
I'm
said
on-
nothing on 4.
Nothing on 4. 5, the second bullet there is selection of a chair and vice chair for 2014 for the implementation board. You could certainly take that.
For implementation board.
Implementation board only. It's the second bullet.
Okay, does anyone on the implementation board object to doing that? No? Okay, we'll open up the implementation board.
Yeah, and one other item as well. 6A and B could certainly be taken as well, although it would mean that Ken has to do the dog and pony show for the mid-year budget twice. The implementation board can make a recommendation today, but the governing board would have to adopt this next meeting.
Vera, if I may, Rose should be here within less than 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Rose, well, you said?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
Great.
Okay, so let's do 5, implementation board.
Yeah.
5. Member Schmidt.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Mr. Chair to be Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Member Lazat.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate the vice chair to be the vice chair.
Thank you.
Or leave everything as it is.
A status quo.
Motion made. Are you okay? Well, you don't want to nominate yourself, and I don't want to nominate myself. So we need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? None. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. We need to stall more. Okay, what else, Ken or Vera, what else can we do to use up the next 10 minutes in a beneficial way?
I suppose you could start the presentation on the mid-year budget. You know, a lot of this is documented. Board member Herrera has read it.
Oh, sure.
You know, so I think you could start that, go through the implementation board action on that.
Okay, let's do it. Thank you.
Try it that way. We'll have her confirm that she's read everything and then she can vote appropriately.
So we're on 6.
Yes. You might note the Shrivers have never been dog owners, we've been cat owners, and I know enough about cats that you can't do a cat and pony show. It won't work. The mid-year budget review is an unusual item, unusual document, in that it combines 2 budget years. Remember, we had the remnant April 26th to June 30th for the 2012-13 year, and then we had the full budget for 2013-14. So we've got 2 different years. And then I rolled into this some recommendations on proceeding with the 2014-15 budget. And let me separate out the 2012, the existing adopted budget, excuse me, from the future budget. Suffice it to say, we intend to bring back next year's budget at the March meeting. So that's why I wanted to surface some things today. And Debbie is saying, pointing to the window and thumbs in the air. So I think those may be coming up the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Wow.
Perfect.
She may need a chair over there, though. Okay, there we
So
go.
we finished all the implementation only, and now we can go.
Well, he's doing this.
Perfect. And Ken's now reporting on number 6.
Thank you. So I think now you can also call the joint meeting to order.
I will now call the joint meeting of the regular governing and implementation board. Thank you. To continue, Ken, please.
Okay, for Councilmember Herrera's benefit, I just started to note that this is an unusual mid-year report in the sense we're dealing with 2 budget years, the remnant of last year plus the one we're in. And then also the report includes some recommendations on issues in next year's budget, since we intend to come back to you in March with next year's budget. So you may not have seen one quite like this, but then again, I've never done one like this, so we proceed ahead. On the current budgets, the last budget that expired on June 30th and the current budget, suffice it to say that preparing the budgets last June was an effort of projection with what I would say was minimum knowledge. We were all starting out, and some of the numbers were not much more than a dart in a dark room, but they hit something and we turned the lights on and said, oh, there's a number, and put it in. That's an exaggeration, but not a long one. And we've learned a lot in the last 8 months. But we still have a lot to learn. And we're still working through the issues of cost centers and what are things going to actually cost. But we have at least a better handle on it now. And so that's sort of the caveats that overlie all of this. The bottom line is that we are okay, that we are spending less than we're taking in, and we're in the black, and so from my standpoint, that's just the bottom line. For the FY 12-13 budget, 2012-2013 budget, we had $30,842 unexpended funds that we recommend be reallocated to 2013-14. For the And then I noted before this issue of the pre-Habitat Agency funding that was allocated from local partner funds for work on the Corps of Engineers permit, and $33,279.17 of that continued on. And my recommendation is to add that into next year's budget as a revenue source. The staff report notes that there's a revenue table. The staff report says it's on page 6 and 7. In fact, it's on page 4 of the mid-year report. That was my mistake in putting together the staff report. A lot of revenues have shifted around, but again, we are basically taking in enough, and we will be taking in more. I've asked the local partners to estimate revenues for the rest of this year in the next weeks, and then also we will have asked them for estimates of revenue for the next budget year. And those numbers will hopefully be coming in within the next week or two. Management team will continue to, we will talk about budget tomorrow, and we'll talk about budget on other Fridays as we move ahead in all of this. So that's a very high-level summary of the existing budget, and then after we get past that, I'll talk a little bit about next year.
Excuse me, Chair Tucker?
Yes.
If I may just say to Member Herrera, because of the conversation you had with Brian and I previously, it was our understanding, we nominated you to be on a committee that I think you expressed an interest in being on, and that is the selection
Yes.
from our service for the new executive director.
Yes.
So you are one of 5 members that is on that committee.
Great.
Our meeting will be January 31st at 2 p.m. The other 4 can make it. I hope you can make it.
Okay.
January 31st, 2 p.m. at the Water District.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I just didn't want to have to slip up.
Yeah, I am on the implementation board, I guess effective at the next meeting, so.
Wonderful.
If that matters in terms of that.
Nope, you're on.
We check.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So, Ken, are you done with your report?
Yes, I've taken the first 3 bullets on the staff report in terms of budget, adjustments to existing budgets of the past budget year also. But essentially, it's a carrying forward of unexpended funds into the current budget year.
Okay, so now you want the implementation board,
So,
our action,
so my
6A
question
right
is
here.
on 6A and B, and then on the next, it's also governing board. Can we, since we're all here, we're gonna make a motion, can we do all at once, or do we really have to have it separate here?
Well, I think 6A is the implementation board.
I know, but if you're gonna explain, it's the same common thing.
There's 2 6As.
I don't think the governing board can formally take action under
All
the
right. Oh, on this
JPA
particular
agreement
item, you're right.
until they have a recommendation by the
From the-
implementation board. So although it seems
Okay.
a bit, you know.
Ken, thank you for that report. Implementation board members, that was 6A, it's the first 3 bullets on agenda item 6. Any discussion or possible motion to adopt the mid-year budget?
Move adoption?
Thank you. Member Herrera, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Now we're on to one that's both votes.
So,
Ken?
going on to governing board 6AA, I guess that should have been 6AA, because it's the next item.
Right.
It's the upper item on the next
The
page.
other item. So from governing board members only, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So approval.
Second.
Okay, so we have, so moved here from Commissioner Roa Munoz and a second from Mayor Tate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That was for A and B, to clarify.
6A. Now let's go to 6B. And by the way, if anyone wants to talk to me offline about the 1.5-year convoluted process it took to get to this point of division, I'll be glad to talk to you, but it was a long, gruesome process. wasn't
You'll
it?
be
I'll be
lined up
curious to
outside.
see if you have a lot of takers.
Yeah.
Well, organizational history. Okay, 6B. Next year's budget. As I said, we want to bring the budget to you in March. And in starting to think through that budget, I realized that there were, I think, 2 issues that I really wanted to identify for you. This is not for approval, but it's to highlight for you some things in the budget. One is that there are any number of agreements that either expire on June 30th, and I'm asking for some direction on those agreements. Or for the city of Morgan Hill, there are 3 agreements that actually expire in 2018, but they're all dependent on funding every year. So the suggestion is, the recommendation is that the agreements with Morgan Hill be funded for the next year. That the agreement with Santa Clara County for controller treasurer functions, and that's set out in the JPA agreement until you folks want to make some changes, but it's set in the agreement that that be funded for 2 years. My suggestion there is that we try for 2-year agreements so we don't go back every year to have to go through the hoops. And then third, there's agreement with Santa Clara County for geographic information services. That agreement, the board authorized me to sign an agreement with the county up to $90,000. That agreement has been worked on over the last months. It is now ready to go to the board, very close to ready. I think it is essentially ready to go to the Board of Supervisors. The target is February 4th, it may be February 25th, if that's the correct date. But the point is it needs Board of Supervisors approval before I can sign it. And then the intent would be in the budget to extend the geographic information services out another couple of years, and I've asked county staff to give me a cost estimate on that, as well as the finance. And then I've recommended that the agreements for legal services, that we go out, that the boards go out with a request for proposals on that. When we adopted that agreement with the city of San Jose, and when I signed the agreement with Santa Clara County last June, it was understood that this was a initial effort. We really didn't have a sense of how much time it would take and what the cost would be. There was an understanding that parties would all be like to step back and have a new shot at this after we've learned some things. And I think that would be appropriate to move ahead with going out and taking a look for services. City of San Jose may well want to apply for that, that's fine, but
Actually, I was going to add to that. The San Jose City Attorney's Office is not interested in continuing the services, so we'll assist the agency in whatever transition is required there, obviously. It's our legal duty to do that, and of course we will, but we're not interested in continuing services. So perhaps another local partner would want to do that, or an outside, some outside attorney.
Okay. Thank you for new information. That really firms it up then that we will go out with a request for proposals for providing legal services. And I think we can be more precise, although it'll still be a range type thing in terms of going ahead. We've, again, learned a lot, Bureau's learned a lot in these last months that will help us. So those are the recommendations on agreements. One other item in the bullet points is that in working on the regional general permit with the Corps, we have found that we will need a new fee, a cost recovery fee. The way the Corps permit is going to end up working is that the Habitat Agency will take the applications in, will make sure that they are complete and work with applicants to make them complete, and then bundle them and get them to the Corps. And the Corps is very pleased with being able to get a set of applications, whether it be every other month or something like that, with a commentary on top saying, number 1, 2, 3, they all comply. Here's how they comply. And the person from the Corps said, oh, that means I can sit down and take maybe 15 minutes, turn them over, and I'm going to save a lot of time.
So Cam, the Corps is not becoming a partner.
No.
We're just
going to help. We're going to help expedite. One of their problems, and one of the problems with these reports too, is incomplete applications, partially complete applications, applications that just aren't really prepared correctly. And one of the things that we've realized is that part of the service we can provide them, as within the RGP, is to facilitate their review process and their quick processing process. And that helps them a great deal. It'll help us. It will help local applicants to have somebody at the local level who can look at an application and say, you're really missing 3 items. And if you go to San Francisco, it just gets reviewed and sent back to you. Let's get these items together. Then it goes to San Francisco, so they don't have to. They can be assured that it's a complete application.
Okay, if I may, in the 4 years that I've been doing this, it seemed from Fish and Game, Fish and Wild, whatever they both are now, there was, Army Corps was coming on, it was getting closer, we were hopeful, da-da-da-da-da-da, and now it sounds like what has been settled is they are not going to become an official partner.
No, they would not become, I think it was
Okay.
never intended to
But
become
it
a partner,
isn't,
but
what you're saying, the change is certainly an improvement over the last 25 years,
Yeah.
over the status quo for the applicant.
yes.
And is it ending here, Ken? Is there a chance of them becoming a partner, or do you think this
No, I don't
has
think
gone
they
as
would
far
ever
as we're
become
gonna
a
go?
partner, but they would issue a regional general permit. Suffice it to say that ICF, with ICF in the lead, we are carrying that whole process forward. I mean, all of the work is being done by ICF and locals. And we're just moving the core staff along, which they greatly appreciate.
I'm sure they do.
But at the same time, it has become very clear that we need to do this, and it has become very clear that their overload problem from the staff standpoint will be greatly helped if we can make sure that when they see an application, they have an assurance it's complete and ready to go, rather than something they have to spend a lot of time analyzing and trying to find.
Okay, so to steal from Supervisor Simidian, I'm walking down the sidewalk, he always uses an example like this, it works very well. I'm walking down the sidewalk, a person stops me, as they do often, and says, "So is the Army Corps of Engineers on yet?" And I say, "Not exactly."
Getting close.
But, well, it's better than it was, in that an application will go forward to them with all the Ts and Is crossed by the municipality, be it the county or the city, along with Fish and Game, Fish and Wild. The partners of the HCA will have completed an application that they know everything is done to Army Corps specifics, and it's being submitted, but then the applicant still has to wait on Army Corps' approval.
The wait should be short, and the conditions on the application will be consistent with the habitat plan. And that was the big issue of the Corps taking a second bite at the apple in terms of, okay, you've done your local mitigations, now here's something else we want to add on top.
Do you see
And
costs?
that is what we
Do you see
have
costs for the
similar.
applicant from the Corps for their
I
permit
think there will be
going
costs
down?
from the Habitat Agency in terms of processing these, providing this assistance. And I really can't speak to actually the core permit cost. I would imagine they won't go down because I don't think they would have the discretion to do it, to go down. But the
Okay.
key there is that we are removing their ability to add more stuff on top of the application.
It certainly adds to our time is money concept, and it cuts down the processing overall time for those applicants that need Army Corps approval.
Yes, it will.
Those that don't, they're still better shape.
Still better shape.
Okay,
And if I
Thank
have
you.
a question.
yes, Vera.
I just wanted to add that the fee obviously is probably one of the last steps in the process that this board is going to have to undertake in implementing an Army Corps permit. First, you're going to have to review the permit, authorize whoever the executive officer is or the chairperson of the board to sign that agreement, to sign the permit. You have to agree with the conditions of the permit. We don't want there to be any surprises there that create some kind of duties on the agency that we're not willing to accept. Additionally, there needs to be some type of an agreement or application mechanism for those seeking Army Corps permit approval through the agency, so that the agency is liable as some kind of a consultant to the people who are seeking these permits. So there's a little bit of work that needs to happen as well, and we really need to determine what are these fees going to look like and what are they for as well.
Member Guerrero.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, is it one set fee, or if the application proceeds and somehow it gets kicked back, do we charge additional fees, or do we warrant that this application is complete and it should go through? Is the applicant thinking that there's some automatic or some more certainty of approval when we're submitting it?
The objective is to have that when an application leaves the Habitat Agency and moves to the Corps, that it is set up to be approved. Not
So there
added on.
shouldn't be, we found something wrong, it's coming back to you now.
Exactly.
and-
That's exactly what, and by working with them, I think
More likely to be approved.
Yeah, I mean, they always have the option of kicking something out.
So I want to know in the process, if it gets kicked back, who's liable, you know, is there extra fees that get charged? I just want to understand where our
It's going to have to
responsibilities.
be, I mean, you can't be creating, you know, gifts of public funds to people who want permit coverage by creating, you know, work that the agency has to pay for and whatever, that,
Right.
you know, it's not appropriate. So it's going to have to be a time and materials cost basis, and we've done that for other permit applications. So we have to collect some type of an estimated amount at the outset and then charge and have an agreement for how they're going to be charged so that they pay. If they don't pay, we quit processing.
Yeah,
You know, we stop
it
the
needs to be a
process.
cost recovery. There's no
And
other
again-
resource we
And
have.
again, no
Which
guarantees
is what
of
occurs
approval.
now. It's what occurs now.
So it's not any different than, you guys are more familiar with the
Cost-wise-
process as it is now anyway.
Cost-wise, not any different, but the fact that the application will be coming from the HCA to the Army Corps as compared from the applicant to the Army is, it's more likely everything is done, checked off, et cetera. So
It
that-
sounds like there'll be a certainty,
that's a
more
plus.
certainty in the time
Yes.
and all of that, which will be good.
Yes.
So the Army Corps, were we expecting them to be part of the plan, or part of the?
No, we were
Hoped.
hoping that they would issue a regional general permit that would cover many of the,
So,
and we're looking at like 90% of the core permits will fall under the regional general permit, and any number of the ones that will not are water district large-scale projects, or maybe, you know, other large-scale projects that could never have been considered for a regional general permit. They're just way, way too big.
have they ever done that in any other instances? Is this
The
something they
only
do
regional
again?
general permit they've issued is for East Contra Costa. That's the first one.
A great deal of projects won't need it at all.
Yeah, and most projects
Won't need-
won't need it.
You don't need the Army Corps for most projects.
And did they not do it because then, I mean, would their fee structure have to change? Is this partly keeping their fee structure intact?
They have never said they were going to do
Okay,
From
so this is just
5 years
wishful
ago till
thinking.
now, like
This
they
is our
never-
hoping and praying. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to understand.
Essentially, Councilmember, the Corps had a policy of not doing this.
it.
Yeah, we were
Yes.
trying to.
And they had a very firm policy, and changes were made, as we understand it, in Washington, that they should do this type of thing. And the word came down, and, you know, I mean, as you get more of the medal on the shoulder with your position and your uniform, you are able to then tell lieutenant colonels what to do, and that word has come down from Washington to the local lieutenant colonel in terms of this is now the way you are supposed to behave. And we're trying to build
I
on.
was a sergeant, so I got lots of people.
Everybody.
I was just a grunt, but anyway.
But this was a Washington direction. The local
Yeah.
staff kicked and screamed with East Contra Costa, but they were told, stop kicking and
Well, thank you
screaming.
for that explanation. As somebody who's newer to it, I appreciate that, getting that perspective. And so it sounds like we've actually got a pretty good win here in terms of setting up this
Absolutely.
process.
Yes.
Okay.
The few
Thank you.
projects that needed, Rose, the few projects that needed Army Corps, they needed the city or the county, and Fish and Game, and Fish and Wildlife, and Army Corps, and it was 4 places and 4 permits and 4 requirements and all the rest. Now they need 1 for the municipality, Fish and, what is it, Fish and Game, Fish and Game?
It is
and
California
Wildlife.
Department of Fish and Wildlife, the state legislature in its infinite wisdom changed the name.
Anyway, most of them needed 3, okay, the Fish and the state, now they just need
Fish
1.
and fish.
Now they just need 1.
Okay, great,
Okay, and the ones that need Army Corps, they need 2, and it used to be 4.
great.
So it's an improvement. It wasn't, we didn't get, but it
We
close.
didn't get one, but we
We're
got.
getting close. And, I mean, I may add, this current work is with the Army Corps. We hope in the future, after I'm gone, but the hope is to move this to the Regional Water Quality Control Boards. That is going to be a very, very difficult task. Just to share with the board what I'm doing, there is a coordination effort working with EPA and the State Water Board staff on amending state policy, water board policy to incorporate habitat conservation plans as a legitimate mitigation mechanism. And I'm meeting with colleagues of mine in other habitat plans. We will be having a meeting in Sacramento in the next month to continue to work on this, and we are cautiously optimistic that state board action on policy of these could be taken sometime in the first half of this calendar year. And without the state board taking action dealing with the regional boards, very honestly, it's not going to be effective.
Any further questions, discussions? What action are we on now?
You are on
6B. 6B
6B.
for
For the
implementation board.
implementation board first and then for the governing board.
Okay, so implementation board members, is there a motion to adopt, for the 2014-15 fiscal year 15 budget?
So moved.
Thank you. Member Schmidt, Member Herrera, first and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all implementation board members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Madam Chair?
And now we move on to governing board members. I'll entertain a motion for item 6B.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Wasserman, sorry, Chair Wasserman, and seconded by Commissioner Munoz. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
There's
Now-
one item that still needs to be taken by the governing board, and the implementation board might as well take action, even though the recommendation is no change. It's item number 4. That's on the joint.
Well, I was thinking that the governing board would probably do all of them, including with the closed session, correct?
Conclude with that.
We can conclude with
Conclude
closed
with
session,
closed
yeah,
session.
because implementation board doesn't.
Right,
Yeah.
so at this time, we just have governing board issues to attend to, right?
It's number 4. It's item number 4. It's the
But
one
we
that
don't
has
have
the-
And also on 5, the selection of governing board chair and
Correct.
vice chair.
Okay,
So-
so we'll start with 4, implementation board. and
Implementation
governing
board, I'm sorry, right, implementation board has,
That's what I said, 1, 2,
Correct.
3, 4. We have all of the items.
Okay. The chair of the governing board is asking if we can just start with item number 2 and work in numerical order. Is that correct?
Yes.
You certainly could, unless you want to let the adjourn the implementation board.
That's what I was trying to do, is because
Right.
I'm looking and all I see is governing board issues, so.
So and so number 4 is the only one remaining.
It's
Yeah.
implementation.
And you have no change, so if the implementation board agrees there's no change, it doesn't
So
work
I-
out.
You need a motion for
Oh,
no
okay,
change.
need a
we all-
motion.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded. We have a motion for no change. Moved and seconded. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, closed session.
So now are we adjourning the implementation board and going on to governing? Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Okay, so-
Implementation board
Yes, we
members
can.
can
So those
meet.
that are on the implementation board can go unless you're on the governing board also, then you need to
And then
stay.
you stay. So implementation board's adjourned.
Yes, that's what I was trying to do. Adjourn the implementation board meeting. Governing board
Good
meeting.
job,
Do you need a motion to adjourn for everybody to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second, done. Bye.
Thank you.
Go Niners!
So see you later.
But I will do the closed session. It's always easiest, right?
Is there gonna be
Keep everybody out of here.
a notice on that 31st meeting I joined? You guys can send it.
Do not need to be publicly noticed because there is not a quorum.
No, but I guess you can send me an email or I just have to write it down, that's it.
We
That's
can
it.
ask the clerk to send out
Okay,
to
thank you.
do that. But we all got out our calendars, but that's why I wanted to tell you to make
Okay,
sure.
great.
Are you going to be adjourned the 31st? Because you could send out an email.
Okay, so we're starting the call to order the governing board meeting. I think we will do the closed session last. So we'll just start with item 1, regular business, approve the minutes of the October 17 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve from the governing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Tate and second by Councilmember Seaver. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And one abstention. On to item 2, authorization of the invitation board to adopt policy and enter into agreements for acceptance of land and mills payment and land cover mitigation fees or restoration or recreation of wetland. Do you want to have a,
one sentence, which is that under the JPA agreement, the governing board retains all duties unless delegated to the implementation board. The agreement actually sets out a list of duties that are delegated. Others have been delegated, and the recommendation is that adopting a policy and then approving agreements under the land in lieu provision of the Habitat Plan be an implementation board, action be delegated by the governing board.
and this is just a resolution for me.
It's a resolution to delegate. It doesn't approve anything, it's just a resolution to delegate.
Motion to approve.
I just had one quick question. This is my first official meeting, so I'm getting caught up here. With regard to the determination of the value of the land, if it's going to be accepted in lieu of payment, how does that work? Is it predetermined? Is it an after fact?
It's an item that will be part of tomorrow morning's management team discussion because the habitat plan has some rather convoluted language, very honestly, and I struggled with that this week, and I'm going to look to my colleagues for some guidance.
Okay.
It's not a nice, easy answer, I'm sorry.
Understood.
Good question.
Yes.
Just, how often do we think this is likely to be exercised?
My personal sense is not very often, but it's one of those issues in the plan that needs a policy and needs a procedure. And in putting together the policy and the procedure, as with some other issues, we found that we have to work together with parts of 3 or 4 different chapters of the plan to make sense out of it. So we need the policy. We need the policy on wetlands, which may be more likely to be used by the water district. We need the policy for county parks, for public lands. We need a policy for open space authority. Those would be very likely to be used. I know they will be used.
I guess the only comment I would make before we take action is, I think it's important to keep in mind that we want the agency to be sort of driving what's sensible and acceptable rather than the applicants.
Oh, and the findings for approval of any agreement, which only the implementation board can make. They have final authority. Have a whole series of findings that address very directly that particular issue of the appropriateness of any land within the broader conservation strategy. If it doesn't fit within the broader strategy, no matter how good a deal, you can't make that finding.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain the motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Herrera and second by Laura Munoz. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. On to item 3, Governing Board Amendment of the Habitat Agency Conflict of Interest Code to add disclosure by members of the Public Advisory Committee.
I think if there are questions on this, I will turn to Vera. It's an issue that I'm not
That's fine, motion to adopt. She said.
I believe you.
Discussion?
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Just briefly, because this wasn't, well, my question should be to our interim executive director. Were the people who applied for the positions on this informed that
Yes.
it might be, okay, then no concern then.
Okay. Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Laura Munoz, second by Herrera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. At this time, this is where if any of the members would like to put something on the future agendized items. If not, we will pass on this. What I did want to say at this time, actually, I'm sorry I forgot, I'll apologize to the public. Are there any public members who wish to speak on things that are not on the agenda? I just wanted to open that up. We do have some public members. Okay, just wanted to give that opportunity. On to the next page. We are at 4 now. Implementation Board and Governing Board consideration modification regular meeting schedule. So we had talked about dropping in July from the
Yes.
Governing Board.
And the staff recommendation is to exchange a meeting in June for a meeting in July.
And that's fine with me. Anybody have any questions about
No.
it? It was more because July, most agencies have a dark month.
Right.
That was the other reason.
The only comment I would make is it will still be a little challenging, I suspect, to schedule June, given the number of budget hearings that folks are in. But as compared to contrast with July, so for it, but just be mindful that June's no day apart in terms of scheduling either. So.
June's better than July for me, I'll just say.
Yeah.
Just on behalf of my colleague, who I'm actually substituting for as an alternate, who has a challenging schedule, he said, gee, can't we hold it some other time? But I recognize everybody else has challenging schedules too, so this way I can go back and tell him I fought like heck. But, but I'll,
But he's got a conflict with his schedule every single meeting.
yeah. So you might be seeing more of me, so you don't want to.
Duly noted.
Do you need a motion for this?
Yes, can we make a motion to adopt resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes. On to selection of implementation board and governing, chair. So for our chair and vice chair for the governing board.
I make
Yes, Chair.
We haven't had a full year yet. I
No.
think continuity is important. I make a motion for you to continue as chair.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. And Vice Chair, I will make a motion to continue also as Vice Chair. We'll do together. Okay,
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're down to
I
close.
think we're all the way done now, so except for
Closed
closed
session.
session.
Yeah,
Now,
the red
how will
stuff.
we have?
We actually have a room, follow the breadcrumbs.
Okay, we have a room for closed session and
Literally, it's in our kitchen.
it's literally just.
Yes, it is in the kitchen.
I didn't see it. It was in the cookies in there.
Ours
is next to the kitchen.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, why can't we just-
can we just close this and ask everyone else?
Yeah.
You certainly can.
Let's do
Let's do
that.
that.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll thank y'all.
Oh, yeah.
I can get my emails.
Broadcast this on the meeting session.
But I